This video is brought to you by Squarespace. Need a website, domain, portfolio, or an online store? Make it with Squarespace. Hi guys and welcome back to my channel. Today's video will be another addition to my art mystery series, but instead of deep diving into something creepy or disturbing like in the last episode, we will instead lighten up the mood by exploring the thrilling and mysterious robbery that ended up becoming one of the most polarized art heists of the century. Over $500 million worth of rare and priceless paintings were stolen from the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, making it the world's largest property theft in recent history. What's even more perplexing is that the case remained unsolved for almost 3 decades, and even now it's highly debated who actually took the paintings and where they went. Let's delve right into it after I thank the sponsor of this video, Squarespace. Squarespace is an all-encompassing option for anyone who wants to create a beautiful website. Nowadays, it's pretty vital to have an online presence, and the best way to get that is to make your own website. With Squarespace's effortless interface, making your own website has never been easier. Whether it's for the purpose of making an online store, a portfolio, or a blog, Squarespace is the perfect option to go with. They offer tools like customizable templates and starter layouts and endless design options that optimize everything to your liking. You have access to marketing tools and analytics in case you want to run an online business. I personally made a portfolio using Squarespace's easy layout templates, and I loved the way it ended up looking. This is perfect for any of you artists or photographers watching who want to make a digital portfolio but didn't know how. While using Squarespace, you can now make a digital portfolio that you can then send to potential clients. I highly recommend you all check out squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch your website, go to squarespace.com/thumain to save 10% off your purchase of a website or domain. Link is in the description. Thank you again Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Before we start, I will put out a trigger warning for robbery and potentially murder, but this video should be fairly digestible for most audiences. Without any further ado, let's get right into it. The infamous art heist took place at the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum located in Boston. It was opened to the public in the year 1903 by none other than Isabella Gardner herself. Isabella Stewart Gardner was a leading American art collector, philanthropist, and a patron of the arts. After her father's passing, Isabella was left with a large inheritance, which prompted her to start collecting art pieces from world-renowned artists such as Titian, Vermeer, Manet, Michelangelo, Botticelli, Matisse, and plenty more. The museum had over 70 paintings, and its architecture was heavily inspired by Venice, as it was Isabella's favorite traveling destination and she wanted to bring a piece of it back with her to America, which is why she modeled the museum after a Renaissance palace. According to her Wikipedia page, Isabella Stewart Gardner was an accomplished traveler and a shrewd collector. She was a leading figure in American social and cultural life. In Boston, they called her, quote, the Queen of the Back Bay, end quote. Upon Isabella's death, she left a will stating that the museum should be kept just as she left it without major changes to her original collection. The works that she had collected over the years should be left for, quote, the education and enjoyment of the public forever, end quote. And just as she had requested, the museum had been kept intact to this day, though it had minor improvements here and there. This was of course until the fated day that the museum permanently lost 13 works from its priceless collection due to the outlandish robbery that took place. Isabella Gardner was a fascinating lady, and if you want to hear more about her life specifically, there's a book called The Art of Scandal, The Life and Times of Isabella Stewart Gardner. If you guys are interested, go read it. If we were to talk about the heist itself though, on a cold night in the year 1990, around 13 works of art were stolen off the walls of the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum in a robbery that took the world by surprise. 2 individuals dressed up as Boston police officers knocked on the door of the museum in the late hours of the night. They were buzzed in by one of the 2 night guards taking care of the museum, and upon entering in, the officers declared the night guard to be under arrest. After the night guard got up from his desk to cooperate with the supposed police officers, the other night guard was also handcuffed while the fake police officers declared this to be a robbery. They handcuffed and duct taped both of the night guards and took them to separate places of the museum's basement. The thieves then decided to loot the museum over the next 81 minutes and took their time robbing the museum before taking the surveillance footage of that day with them and driving off into the night. A few hours later, as the morning shift security guards were checking into work, they noticed that the doors of the museums were locked, and nobody was responding to their request to be bussed in. They subsequently called the police, and upon entering the museum, they were greeted by a horrific sight of empty frames littering the museum floors. The 2 restrained night guards were also found and rescued unharmed, and so the investigation began on who these fake officers were and which pieces were taken from the museum. The 13 pieces of art that were stolen included a work called The Concert, which is one of only 34 known Johannes Vermeer paintings. It's thought to be one of the most valuable lost paintings in the world due to its value being over $200 million. The second painting that was taken was The Sea of Galilee, which is Rembrandt's only seascape painting, and it's valued at $100 million due to that being the case. The other stolen works included more Rembrandt pieces, such as his self-portrait etching and a painting called A Lady and Gentleman in Black. The thieves also took Finck's Landscape with Obelisk, Manet's Gestor Toni, a bunch of Degas works like La Sortie de Passage, Cortège aux Environs de Florence, broke ground for an artistic Surrey 1 and 2, and 3 mounted jackies. I cannot for the life of me say these names, so I'm so sorry. I tried, okay? I did. So anyway, moving on. Lastly, the robbers took a relatively valueless French imperial eagle finial and an ancient Chinese gull, which confused the investigators and the museum staff as they could have stolen more valuable items from the museum, like the works of Michelangelo or Botticelli. What upset the museum staff even more was the fact that these stolen paintings were cut out of their frames using a knife, which of course damages them, and it's always best to open the frames correctly in order to not harm the paintings themselves. This made it seem like whoever these thieves were had no love for art, or were just in such a hurry that they did not care if the art they stole got ruined in the process. Regardless, the absurdity of this crime was definitely something the FBI and the Boston police were both confused by, especially since many of the actions these thieves took pointed into the direction of this being an inside job. What further confused the museum staff and the investigators was the odd collection of items that were taken. The odd selection of sketches, the French eagle finial, and the Asian Chinese zoo seemed so out of the ordinary. It almost felt as though these robbers already knew what they wanted to take and came for that reason, but ended up taking a couple of extras on their way out, but of course, this we will never know. The FBI put out a $5 million reward to whomever could help find the missing paintings. This was later changed to $10 million. While the investigation was in process, the police discovered that the only so-called panic button was behind the guard's desk, and when the night guards were ambushed, neither of them pressed this button to alert the authorities for help. After they interviewed one of the night guards, the reality of what happened that night quickly came into focus. The night watch in charge of the guard's desk that night was called Rick Abath, and he was a 23-year-old rock performer who loved to smoke weed and vibe. Rick confessed to being high most of the time while he was working, though he denies being high during the night of the robbery. When the fake police officers told him about being under arrest, Rick didn't question them since he thought they had caught on to him at that time. This is why it was so easy for the robbers to get him away from the panic button, and after handcuffing Rick, it was easy to do the same to the second night guard as well. For a time, the police suspected Rick to be an accomplice to the robbery due to him just bussing these individuals into the museum at late hours of the night, even though it was museum's policy to not let anyone in during nighttime. Rick has denied having anything to do with the robbery and claims that this policy was never relayed to him. The investigators also found it bizarre that the motion detectors did not catch the robbers in a specific room at all, even though the Monet painting was stolen from that specific room. The last person the motion detectors caught in that room was none other than Rick Abath, when he was doing his mandatory round that the guards do in intervals to make sure everything is okay. How did the thieves get the painting from that room when the motion detectors didn't catch them at all? The police also discovered decades later that Rick had let someone into the museum during one of his night shifts a day before the robbery, which Rick claims to know nothing about. The mysterious man was debated of being Rick's supervisor, but due to the video being old, is hard to say for certain. Rick's colleagues all deny him having anything to do with the robbery, as they described him to be too disheveled and chill to commit such an elaborate plan. The FBI also ruled him out of being a suspect after monitoring him for a while and coming to the conclusion that he was, quote, too incompetent to commit the heist, end quote. After interviewing all of the witnesses, the authorities put out this police sketch of the alleged thieves, though none of the witnesses got a good look of their faces. The only thing Rick remembers was the fake mustaches both of the criminals were wearing. The investigation then turned their eyes on another suspect that was an infamous art thief called Brian McDevitt. He was previously charged for trying to rob a Rembrandt painting from the Hyde Collection Museum after posing as a FedEx driver. This interested the FBI due to it being so similar to the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum heist, with the dress up and the interest in specifically stealing a Rembrandt painting. Brian also fit the police sketch, which made him a perfect suspect. Brian denied all involvement in the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum heist, but also denied to take a polygraph test when presented with it. After Brian's fingerprints were compared to those at the crime scene, the FBI had to drop him as a suspect due to them not being a match. The FBI then turned their attention to the mafia gang that was active in that area of Boston at the time of the heist. White Bulger, who was a crime boss at the time, allegedly had deep connections to the Boston police. It was speculated that perhaps that's why it was so easy for Whitey's gang to get access to police uniforms and commit the heist without it being traced back to him. It is also alleged that Whitey sold the stolen works in the underground black market to an Irish criminal organization. This is all speculation, however, since no evidence of this has come out, and while this was all going down, Whitey was very vocal about feeling slighted that someone had dared to rob a museum in his turf and was offering to catch that person so he can punish them. So take that information as you will. In the year 1994, the director of the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, called Anne Hawley, was contacted by an anonymous letter that claimed to know the whereabouts of the paintings and that they wanted to negotiate with the museum to get the paintings back to them. According to Wikipedia, the writer explained that they were a third-party negotiator and did not know the identity of the thieves. They explained that the artwork was stolen to reduce a prison sentence, but as the opportunity had passed, they had no longer a motive to keep the artwork and they wanted to negotiate a return. The writer explained that the artwork was being held in a non-common law country under climate control conditions. They wanted immunity for themselves and all the others involved, and $2.6 million for the return of the artwork. They also added that if the museum was interested in negotiation, they should print a coded message in the Boston Globe. Anne quickly got in contact with the FBI, and so the coded message was released in the Boston Globe newspaper. But unfortunately, the sender of the letter got cold feet and expressed disappointment of getting the FBI and authorities involved. Anne never heard back from the anonymous writer ever again. The FBI highly suspected Boston Mafia members behind this crime, as when they investigated the case in undercover and sting operations, they heard buzzings of the heist in these circles. A famous art thief called Miles J. Connor, who was in jail at the time of the heist, spoke to authorities and revealed that allegedly the criminal called Bobby Donati and David Houghton were behind the heist. Miles and Bobby had worked together on other art heists, and Miles alleges that he and Bobby were supposed to rob the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum together. He also alleges that while touring the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, Bobby allegedly really took an interest to the French eagle finial that was later stolen. Miles says that Bobby wanted to rob the museum so he could use the artwork as a get-out-of-jail-free card due to Bobby witnessing Miles cut a deal with the feds for a shorter sentence by giving them the location of a priceless stolen painting. Both Bobby and David died shortly after the heist had taken place. Bobby was murdered and David died in a mysterious illness which is thought to have been poisoning, but this of course can't be confirmed. No evidence was found of them having the paintings, but they remain highly likely to have had something to do with the heist. The case of the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum has remained unsolved for almost 3 decades until fairly recently when new information came out. The FBI declared the case solved by announcing that the crime boss Carmelo Merlino was the master planner of the heist. They claimed that Merlino sent 2 of his goons called George Reisfelder and Leonardo Di Muzio to execute the heist while dressed as police officers. And after the heist was successfully performed, Merlino allegedly murdered or had a hand in the sudden and death of these two individuals. Quote, Merlino allegedly bragged to informants that he was going to recover the artwork and collect the reward. Law enforcement offered him leniency if he could return the stolen art, but he was unable to ever produce any of the paintings. End quote. Merlino himself has passed away by now too, which has led to many wondering how the FBI could be so certain that he was behind the heist. People have criticized the FBI and law enforcement agencies for pinning the heist on dead men when the works of art have yet to be recovered. It all just feels awfully convenient, though it can't be denied how suspicious it is that everyone suspected of the heist ends up dying of suspicious causes. I do wonder who could have been behind it all, but I kinda wanna hear what you guys think in the comments. Let's wrap this part up and jump into my final thoughts in all this. The Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum art heist feels like it's something that came straight out of a movie, but to know that this is something that actually happened is quite mind-blowing to say the least. Regardless of where these paintings are, many wonder if it was even a smart idea to steal them in the first place because of how recognizable they are. It's not like the thieves can just put the paintings up on their homes without having to be afraid of getting sussed out. But for those of you who don't know, there's actually a vast and lucrative underground business surrounding stolen paintings and works of art. The stolen paintings are usually worth a fraction of the original worth in the black market. For example, the Rembrandt Seascape painting that's worth $200 million would be worth around $20 million instead. It's still a fortune even though the price was reduced by a lot. Stolen paintings are also used as collateral on drug trades or to trade for a reduced sentence in jail, so there are plenty of other ways to make use of these stolen works. I won't deep dive into the black market of artworks just yet, but if it's a topic that you guys want me to explore further, I wouldn't mind making a video on it in the future. Let me know in the comments. Whatever the case may be with these stolen works, one thing is for certain. This isn't the biggest heist in the history of the world, as I'd argue that everything in the British National Museum is just stolen works from different colonized nations, but you know, that's a topic for another day. That being said, however, it's still sad to see so many irreplaceable artworks taken like that when they were supposed to be viewed by the public, like our good sis Isabella Gardner said in her will. If any of you guys live in Boston, I do recommend paying a visit to the museum, as even though the paintings and works were stolen, the frames that the thieves left behind have been put up for everybody to see even though they are empty. So even though the paintings might not be there, you can still see the remnants of whatever took place in that museum. Thank you guys for watching. I want to thank my lovely patrons and channel members for being so kind and supportive of my content. It's thanks to you that I can continue to bring you guys new content. Thank you to Alicat, Darcy Rawlings, Nat, Dayanara Serges, Jamisha Walker, Zeline Bede, Seiji Hito, Eddie Martinelli, Life on Mars, Hat, Salem Smith, Inola, Neptune, Adrian Charles Cohn, Sammy Specials, Nico D'Angelo, Crystal, Jane Sa 134, Jillian, JJ, Adam Quentin Colley, Sebastian Lurking, Ghoul Wrangler, Isabella, JD Chungs, Vic Abrantes, Ashley V, Lady Kimono, Jeriah Sun, Jasmine Donald, Bare Hands, Grey Raven, Black Wolf 275, Katie Alina, Yuki Onna, Duchess Celestia, Split into Two, Harriet Rose, Paige, Lady Kimono, Cloudy Coffees, Garrett, and Queen Pritters Creates. Thank you all so much for all your support. I truly 100% appreciate it, and honestly, you guys make the biggest difference. If you want to support me, consider becoming a channel member by pressing the join button or clicking the join channel membership link that I have in my description. What did you guys think of today's topic? Who do you think is behind the heist? Was it an inside job? Let me know in the comments. Bye!